All right. All right, here we go. So really what I want to focus on today is really a kind of a spin-off from what we addressed a little bit yesterday. And, you know, our conversation yesterday was really about positioning yourself so that your clients see you differently than the way that they've always seen LOs when you talk to them, whether your client is a realtor, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a business associate, you know, financial planner, attorney, CPA, whoever the case may be.
Okay.
One of the greatest strategies that you can have is having a prepared presentation that you rely on and you are intentional with every single time. Because regardless of the outcome of the meeting or the phone call, you always have a chance to be expanding your brand. And I want to make that abundantly clear because you never know where business is going to come from at any given point in time. But if you wake up every day and your number one goal is to keep expanding your message to as many people as possible, eventually you're going to have a brand that's large enough to where you can wake up and roll out of bed and have a six-figure income without really even having to try.
Right.
And I'll give you this as a personal example for myself. I was never the best loan officer. I may have mentioned that to you. I was not very technical. I was not very fluid in all regs and guidelines, and I would always rely on other people to help me in that respect. But where I really excelled was in my ability to create relationships in referable situations, meaning I capitalized on every chance that I could get to talk to somebody. I didn't care what it was about, but if you were calling me or talking to me and I had a chance to talk to you about what I do, I always took that as an opportunity to expand my brand, because once I got people to see why I did it, I believe I was much more referable at that point, and I was always able to get people to verbally commit to referring me whenever I, you know, positioned the conversation that way. So it starts with an understanding of what you're about. Okay, so my whole presentation would go in really five different segments. We talked yesterday about building rapport. I think it is invaluable at every stage to find some common ground. People tend to like the people that believe in what they believe. That's why, like, I'm a car guy. I love, you know, I've been a car fanatic most of my life, and it's not unusual that a large chunk of my referred business comes from the automotive sector. Whether it's guys that wrenching cars in the backyard, whether it's guys that race cars at the drag strips on the weekends, whether it's engineers at one of the three major motor companies here in Michigan. But I tend to gravitate towards those people because I seem to have a lot in common with them and I can talk their language. I always found myself finding out ways to create rapport with my clients when I first meet with them, whether it's on the phone, whether it's face-to-face, and we talked a little bit about that yesterday. So the conversation would usually start off with finding some commonality, and most of the time it was based, you know, primarily on who referred them to me. And so I would always ask them, and it was part of my presentation. It was, so, Dan, I heard Scott Hudspeth put you in touch with me. I'm super excited because I think he's just the best. He's just one of those guys that would give you the shirt off his back if you were standing in the rain freezing. And I'm curious, you know, I think it's a really high honor to get a referral from Scott. I mean, the fact that he's telling you about me, I'm curious, what did Scott have to say?
Well, you just let me know that you've been doing this for a while, and there's a number of loan officers that you work with that have had great success after doing your coaching. So that obviously piqued my interest in getting in touch with you.
Wow. You know, it always amazes me how much people value the things that I do, because I don't really look at it as being anything special. But, you know, I look at Scott and I'm like, he's somebody I look up to, and the fact that he can refer me to you, just, it means the world to me. And so the number one thing that I want to make clear as we go through this process, Dan, is I really, really value my relationship with Scott. Obviously, it's very difficult, and I'm sure you can relate to this. It is hard to get people to refer you. It is hard to get people to put their trust in somebody else, let alone put it in the hands of somebody doing what I would consider to be the largest investment of their life. And so I don't take that lightly. So as we go through this process, I want you to understand that I know clearly that I'm not the best loan officer for every person in the market. I get that, and I don't pretend to be that for everybody. I kind of value myself kind of like a limousine versus a cab. When you come out of an airport and you're going to go for an hour and a half or 2-hour drive to your destination, and you're staring at a cab or a limousine, obviously the price difference is going to be there. But if the price difference was really nominal, let's say it was 20 to 40 bucks, and it was you and your husband or you and your wife, and you had 2 kids, and you could take a cab or a limo for 40 bucks more, where would you tend to look at? Would you look more at the limo, or would you say, I'd rather save the 40 bucks and take the cab?
Well, in most cases, probably the limo.
Right, and a lot of the reasons why people take the limo is because of just the amenities. I mean, the comfort, the attention to detail, the courtesy, the prestige of getting in and out of one. I mean, it's pretty fun. And that limousine driver is much more attentive to your needs, and they're much more aware of who you are and where you're going and why you're doing it, and they literally cater themselves to your needs. Now, the product, Dan, is the same. It's going from point A to point B. Let's not kid ourselves. It's 4 wheels in a car. It's just the end result is totally different. And I believe that my business is much like the limo. So we're not the cheapest rate that's out there. And so I want you to know that as we go through this process, I want you to know that it's okay that if you decide at the end of this meeting that I'm not a good fit for you, I want you to know that it's okay, because as much as you're interviewing me for the role to be able to help you accomplish this, I'm also interviewing you to determine if you're a good fit for my business. See, my business comes from a place where I value relationships so much that I can't afford to take on a transaction that I cannot deliver on. And so when you look at my relationship with Scott, who I think is, he's somebody I look up to wholeheartedly, I believe that there's a triangle, and I call it the triangle of trust. And you'll notice this on my business card. The triangle of trust really is a philosophy that I've built, and let me show you what that means. So keep Cataray, this is my logo. Are you on the computer, my friend?
Yes.
Okay. So here is my logo. So as you notice, I have built what's called a triangle of trust practice, and that means that my relationship with Scott is very, very strong. It has to get that way in order for him to feel comfortable referring me. So at every step, at every point in my conversation with you, Dan, my number one goal is to make sure that you go back to Scott and say thank you. So irregardless of what happens between you and I want to be that person that provides you enough value that you go back to Scott and say thank you. Is that fair?
Yeah, that works.
Awesome. The cool part is that if I can do that, I have found that my process and my experience lends me to being able to serve what your goals and needs are, as long as I feel like I can deliver on them. And so you become part of the triangle in the sense that if I do a really good job for you, my relationship with you becomes significantly stronger. And by default, because I'm doing such a good job for you, yours and Scott's relationship becomes significantly greater because you trusted him to do something and you did it, and you're getting the result that you expected, and hopefully even more than that. And here's where it really gets interesting for me. By doing right by you and your family, and you going back to Scott and saying thank you, I now have developed an even stronger relationship with Scott. So my relationship with him is magnified or amplified. And so the whole value of what I do isn't just simply around getting you a loan. It's really managing the relationship between you and Scott. And I feel like if I do right by you, I inevitably do right by him. So the entire process is really centered around one concept. A, you going back to Scott and saying thank you, but B, once you go through this process and you see the reason we do this, I hope you become an advocate of our business. Like ultimately, I want you to be out there telling other people about me, because you know that if I do as good of a job for you based on Scott's referral, I can assure you that we're going to do equally as good for the person you refer to us, and you're going to love the fact that that person comes back to you and says thank you. And that's the reason my business is so selective, is that I can't afford not to have that happen on every transaction, because if I fail at it, my bridge gets burnt in 3 different ways. My relationship with you, your bridge with Scott, and then my relationship with Scott. And so it's very, very significant that we're clear on, as we move through this process, that we come to a term that, we come to an agreement that, you will deliver on what I need from you, and, I'm going to deliver on what you need from me. And by doing that, my goal is to get you to be an advocate of my business. Is that fair? Is that something that you can understand and commit to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's
awesome. So this process of buying a house, Dan, it sucks. Let's just be clear about this. It is not fun. It is not easy. And anybody that tells you otherwise is slightly misleading you. See, again, going back to my business being 100% relationship-based and counting on you to eventually refer me and go back to Scott, my number one concern right now is to help manage your fears. And that's by telling you the truth about what you're about to get into. So this whole home buying process is a lot like forensics, except they use black lights and tweezers to go through your bank statements and your financial life. And it's pretty invasive. I mean, we learn more about you than you probably tell most of your intimate relationships. And so I take that very, very seriously. But I have to be honest with you, as we go through this, there is going to be a point in time in which you hate me. So here's a list of about 85 things that could go wrong. And we do a really good job of avoiding about 99% of them, but there's always times in which it shows up that's unpredicted. Not that we don't or aren't aware of it, but we don't see it coming. And so I want you to kind of go over this list at your leisure and just recognize that there's a lot of things that go on through the process that, if it's not managed correctly, it could cause a lot of stress. And even if it's managed correctly, there's still going to be that time when I pick up the phone and call you and you're going to hate me. And I get that. And I want you to understand that I'm fully aware of it, but it doesn't change the fact that this is the ugliness about what we do. And so my number one goal, though, is going back to my relationship with Scott, is we obviously would never ask you for something that we wouldn't absolutely need. And because of the time-sensitive nature of this business, we typically need whatever we request fairly quickly. So your commitment in working with me through that is imperative, because again, my relationship with Scott is really the most important thing, and I want you to know that we care about our relationship with you just as much. So if you can commit to doing that with us, I think we can continue to move forward and get to that place where you guys are looking for somebody to help take you through this home buying process. Is that fair? Is that something that you can agree to?
No, yeah, I just appreciate you letting me know up front.
Awesome, awesome. So as we move through this home buying process, which there's going to be ups and downs, it's going to be difficult, but like I said, every time there's a little bit of turbulence on a plane, you hope to God you don't look out at the window and see the pilot bailing out on you. Well, I've flown this flight 1,000 times, Dan, and I've seen it all. My greatest asset is the fact that I know how to handle just about everything that comes our way. And we do a really good job of making sure that we don't involve you if we don't have to, because we understand how stressful the process is, even just moving. I mean, so, everything you got going on in your own plate, let alone having to deal with the financial side of it. So what we're looking for is that just general understanding that if I commit to doing what I say I'm going to, which is deliver on the expectations that you're going to have of me, and I'm going to have expectations of you, and you're going to deliver on that, I think we can come to an agreement that moving forward, it seems like we'd be a good partnership. And if I can go through your loan details and come to a conclusion, I feel like I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to help you guys accomplish this. If that's something that you're comfortable with, I just want you to understand that, again, my relationship with Scott it means the world to me. And he also understands that I'm not the only loan officer that's out there, but I believe that I'm the best loan officer for you to talk to figure out a game plan. And as long as we can come to terms with, that, I think we're going to have a lot of fun and we're going to enjoy this process. Are you guys comfortable with this? Does this make sense to you? I mean, I know that you guys could go to a bank or go to the internet or go to a credit union. You guys can go through that, but I feel like my process is significantly different because you get a higher level of consulting, which means I'm going to start asking you some questions about your wants, your goals, and your needs, and we're going to map it out. And then I'm going to do a really good job of negotiating between the bank and the underwriter and the conditions and getting you through this process and managing, and then managing the fears and the expectations of what the listing agent and the seller and your agent have, so that it all comes together in such a way that, you ultimately go back to Scott and say thank you. And I feel like if I can do that for you, then I believe I've created an advocate in you that you'll feel comfortable referring me to the people you care about. Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's talk about your W-2s, bank statements, pay stubs, and tax returns.
Okay.
So that literally took less than 15 minutes.
Okay, and how many times during the process does somebody say, do you hate your job?
I welcome those conversations because in all fairness, anytime you get feedback, it means that they are engaged in what you're doing. And when somebody says, do you hate your job? My response would be, God, no, I love it. And the reason I love it is because I think my greatest asset, Dan, is the fact that I know how difficult this process is. I know how hard it is on you guys because I've done it myself. And because I've done it so many times and I've helped so many families out, and the fact that I helped Scott out enough that he referred you to me, that means that I love my job. I don't love the point in which you guys hate me, but I also understand that it's just emotion, and anybody would get frustrated when they've got 100 things being juggled at the same time. So I get it, but for me, man, I love what I do because I believe that what I do is really significant in the sense that I don't think there's a lot of loan officers or originators in my industry that actually understand the business the way that I do. And I think you're really fortunate to have found a team like myself, because we're going to make this process go as smoothly as possible, and we're going to create a raving fan in you. That's what we want. We want you to be a raving fan. We want you to go tell other people about us.
Right, that's a very good twist.
Do you notice how every time I have a conversation, it always leads back to very, very specific things. It leads back to Scott, which is, again, that feel good of the reason why they're meeting with you, and the fact that my business is referred, and the fact that I'm creating an advocate in Scott, and the fact that I'm going to create an advocate in you. The message is repeated over and over and over and over and over. See, before I talk about mortgage stuff, I've created an image of who I am so that when they're done with my meeting, they're going to compare everybody else to me. They're not comparing me to everybody else, because I've now explained it in such a way that I've created a relationship, I've created a bond, I've created an image, and I've created something tangible. This limousine is a story that they can sink their teeth into because they've experienced it before. The feeling of what it means to go back to Scott and say thank you is now amplified because they're going to know how good it feels to say thank you to Scott, and they're going to want to feel the same way. Everything is about expanding the brand and being able to communicate a value about why it is that I do what I do, and not about what I do. Because once you get them to buy into the why of what you do or why you do it, they'll listen to what you're doing.
Right. Okay. Well,
now,
got me sold. I'm on board.
What's that?
I said you've got me sold. I'm on board.
Why do I have you sold?
No, because it's a completely different approach from what I've ever done before. I mean, I try to cut off some of this stuff, but it's nowhere near, you're doing a lot more storytelling, which people can understand better, so it makes sense.
So we talk about, in a lot of coaching that I do, we talk about framing yourself. Framing yourself is being able to take a picture of who you are and putting a different frame around it. Like it or not, every realtor and every consumer has a perception of who you are, right?
Right.
People are extremely judgmental, but they're also extremely perceptive, and they're also very, very aware of when people sell them. Consumers are extremely intelligent. The reason I take the 15-minute window up front is because I believe in my heart that irrespective of the outcome of the meeting, I've gotten them to commit to my process, commit to my value system. I've given them the permission to reject me. I've told them that it's okay if they choose not to use me. I've given them a total indication of why it's okay if I choose not to work with them. And I've made it about my value system. I've made it about my relationship with Scott. Like, I don't want to tell somebody something that I can't deliver for fear that it's going to burn 3 bridges. That's something that people can understand. That's a value proposition that people can get behind.
Yep, I agree.
And then when you talk about the triangle of trust and you explain how valuable the one connection is between the two of us, which is Scott, it elevates you to understand that I recognize that I don't need to sell you. I don't want to provide you something that I can't deliver on. It makes the words that come out of my mouth significantly more valuable because they understand, and now they're not just hearing what I'm saying, they're listening because I've helped define why they should listen. And by setting the expectations, it just creates that bar that in order for me to be able to earn the right to ask for referrals, I have to put a little fear into them to let them know that this is a difficult process. I'm not going to hide behind it. We both know how messy this business is.
Right.
And if I didn't tell you how messy it was, and it wasn't messy, I don't really gain any leverage. If I don't tell you how messy it is and it becomes messy, I've shot myself in the foot. But if I tell you how messy it is and it's not messy, I become significantly more referable. If I tell you it's messy and it becomes messy, then you're like, oh, yeah, I was kind of prepared for that, which again elevates your referability. And then when you end it with the agreement that if you're comfortable, I'd like to move forward, as long as we're on the same page that you're going to at least go back to Scott and say thank you. And that if we deliver on what we promised, that you'll be an advocate of us and refer us to the people you care about. Because I promise you, you'll get a great phone call and a thank you from them. The entire mindset for that 15 minutes is getting people to look at you differently. Because everybody else that they're going to think about and talk to, nobody's going to stand a chance. Now, 20% of your clientele, Dan, are going to shop you. And it isn't going to matter what you say, and it isn't going to matter how you say it, it isn't going to matter when you say it. It's just the fact that that's who they are. Those are the times that you have to decide if you really come from a position of want versus need. I'm okay firing my clients. I've had many conversations with a client comes in, I give them the 15-minute speech, and like, yeah, I get all that, and that's all fine and dandy, but I'm really just curious about rates. Okay, well, I don't give out good faith estimates because I don't believe that the good faith estimate is an accurate depiction of what the realities are that you can go through the process. Because there's no commitment that if you get a good faith estimate that that's what you're going to get at the time of closing, or even if you make it to closing. So instead, I'd rather just analyze your situation, give you my heartfelt opinion, and if you don't agree with it and you think you can do better elsewhere, go for it. But I'm not going to give away the farm just because I want your business. I'm going to allocate that energy that I would put into you with somebody who's not going to cheapen my mindset or cheapen my value or cheapen my process. And I'd give them a higher level of service because I'm not working with a cheapskate like you. So I would simply go, you know what, I appreciate your willingness to just focus on rate. That's just not my business. I mean, we're competitive, but you're going to find a cheaper rate out there, I guarantee it. So I think it might be best if we just part ways now. I'm okay with it. Remember I said in the beginning, I'm not for everybody, and my business is very selective. I would rather fire them before they fire me. Now, I'm not saying that in certain situations that we don't need the business, but if your mindset is cognizant of whether or not you want the business or not, you'll approach it differently, and you won't let your clients take advantage of you. And there will be ones that do. There's nothing you can do about it.
What's your thought on that same subject when we're talking about being referred by a top realtor, one of your top realtors, and then they want to shop rate you still treat them the same way, saying that it's not going to be me. If you're just looking for rate, you need to go somewhere else, or
No, 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 no.
right. So I mean that's
You're,
what I
yep.
heard, but
Well, here's the difference, is that you have to take into account the referable. You've got pillars of business. Like you've got
right,
your realtors, you've got your past clients, you've got your your database, you've got your friends, you've got your social, you've got your affiliated relationships and so forth. You have a relationship with a pillar of business. There's the professional courtesy that somebody who steers a large percentage of business to you, I would do the loan for free. I would look at them and go, my thank you to you for all the business you've given me over the years, I'm going to do your loan for free. You make it so that they never want to shop you. You don't give them a reason, and that's kind of one of those get out of jail free card type conversations. But if this realtor comes to you and says, oh, if you do my loan for me,
no,
and you
that's
give
I'm
me
not, but I'm talking about a referral. The realtor's working with a buyer, sends the buyer to you, and the buyer
oh,
after your
oh,
15-minute conversation says, well, rate's the most important thing to me.
then you have to have an honest conversation with the client, and if that's what's most important, then you tell them that I'm not really that interested. I mean, you'll go out there and find a better interest rate. So I always used to say to the client, I said, you know what, let me back up a little bit. So my process was, if you wanted to meet with me, I had you complete an outline that I emailed to you, which was a very simplified version of a 1003. It would come into my office. It would be inputted into the system, and my team would pull credit. I would get the credit profile, and then I would look at it and go, okay, let's schedule an appointment. My team would call the client, and they would come in. The act in which somebody's willing to drive from their office to meet with you at one of your consulting times tended to leave out the issue of rate more often than not, because they weren't going to invest that much time and energy if it was all about rate to them.
Okay.
If the conversation turned into, like a lot of the engineers that I work with, it was rate, 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 rate. Okay, I get that, brother. I get that. I'm not the cheapest rate out there. And so if you would like to go out there and find 4 or 5 good faith estimates, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. And then when you find the 5 good faith estimates, give me the best one, and I'll tell you if it's the best deal for you or not. If that's what you're going to compare me to, I'll help you in that respect because of who you were referred by.
Okay.
I would then call the realtor and say, listen, if the agent is that good, like for example, my realtor base, I'd call up Chuck and go, hey Chuck, Samir called me up and he's like, all he's interested in a rate. And Chuck's response was F him. If he thinks that's all we're about, he can go suck on a log. I don't really care. But I'm not going to go working with him if he's going to be working with some Tom, Dick, and Harry realtor or lender down the street or some internet bank, because I'm not going to put up with that crap. I don't have time. And he would call the client and go, listen, Samir, as much as you want to get the best interest rate, you're not going to get the process, the program, and everything else that comes along with buying a house, and you're going to hate the process because I've dealt with them. I don't care who you go with, but I'm telling you, you're going to be making my life miserable if you end up using a loan officer other than Doug.
Okay.
If your realtor is that good, they're going to want to back you in that respect, because, and let's be honest, if the client's going out there looking for rate, your agent either goes, oh, I think that's the best thing for him, then your agent isn't worth anything. If your agent goes, holy crap, I refuse to work with an internet bank. I'm not going to let them work with Bank of America or Chase. I mean, because it makes my life hell.
Right.
So my realtors always knew that what they got from me was the thank you call and the partnership and the delivery. I love those conversations because I love being able to go to the realtor and go, hey, Mr. Realtor, Chuck, Phil and Bev, Steve, Mark, hey, listen, guys, so-and-so just shot me on rate. I get it. All right, let me go have a conversation with them. And sometimes, sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes they just went with another lender. Mm-hmm. And I would always call up the realtor and go, how's it going with so-and-so? Like, oh, I hate the fact that they didn't use you.
Right.
Because it pulls onto their stress level. See, I take the stress off my realtor's plate. Right. You kind of get the point. You kind of get the perspective shift.
Right, and then that makes their conversation better the next time because they'll be more as they go through those headaches with the other lenders, they'll fight harder to get them to stay with you.
Absolutely. See, there's the partnership. But again, I'm not afraid. I refuse to give out my good faith estimates. Never. I never did. Because all you're doing at that point is you've given away the milk, brother. Why do they want the cow?
Right.
Regardless if the milk is just dyed water, they don't know the difference because they're looking at numbers they have no idea about.
Mm-hmm.
The client doesn't know what they don't know. All they see are the bottom line numbers, and anybody can manipulate those numbers. But again, when you start with your 15-minute presentation this way, they start to listen to what you have to say. Then they start comparing everybody else to you. I had clients who took me up on that. They'd go and they got, well, yeah, my mom and dad wanted me to talk to their bank, or they wanted me to, so I did. And like, here's their good faith. And I'd go, well, here's the difference. I would go down in the numbers and I would educate them. See, the tax prorations that you have here, they've only factored in the prorations that the bank's going to want to collect for escrows. They haven't factored in the money that you have to pay back the seller. So based on what I see, you're already off by $3,000. The other part of it is that they didn't account for the appraisal fee that's not on here. They didn't give you credit for the application fee that you had, that they were going to charge you. And the reality is, at the end of the day, it looks like your good faith estimate is off by several grand. So this is why most people hate the loan business, because they get told one thing and they're not going to get, it's not going to come true.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yep.
And so when you position yourself to be the value, then they come looking to you for advice. Right now, you're playing on the same level as everybody else. But you can see where, if you have this presentation in the beginning, what do you think the image of you is in front of your clients now?
Oh, it's a whole lot higher. It's got to be.
Well, I mean, it's a hell of a lot better, even if you fumble your way through it, than not saying it at all.
Right.
But the point is that if you break it down into bullet points in your head, and you simply start making it an intentional conversation, as imperfect as you might believe it is, the message is going to resonate with the client.
Right.
And you can even be humble about it. You can start off your conversation by going, you know what, Mr. Client, I've been doing this for so long, but somebody just taught me something that just made me open my eyes, and it was the realization that this business is extremely, extremely difficult to understand from your perspective. Let me tell you a little bit about what I believe now is my number one goal with you. I want you to go back to so-and-so and say thank you. That's it. I want you to become so happy with what we talk about here today that you go say thank you. Because hopefully I get that if I'm able to do that for you, you become an advocate of my business, and that's ultimately what I want. So every want, goal, and desire that we talk about for you and your family, if I'm able to deliver on that, and you're able, and you decide to work with me, and I decide to work with you, I feel like we're going to have a great time doing this. There's literally 100 things that could go wrong, and we're going to do our best to avoid 99 of them. And here's a list of them. We can go over them if you want. But to understand that at some point you're going to hate me. I know it, because there's going to be things on here that I didn't foresee, which happens all the time. It's a very difficult process. But if I'm able to help you understand that this business is extremely difficult and that it's not going to be perfect with anybody, that at least I can put you into the position of knowing that I'm going to tell you the truth because I care about what you go back to Scott and say thank you, what you go back to Scott and say to him, because my relationship with him is extremely important. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I mean, you can dumb it down. You can do whatever you want with it. The truth is that if you're not saying it, you're not elevating yourself, and you're no different than anybody else who's shopping just interest rates.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, it does, yeah. And I know that this is one of those things where the first one will be rough, the second one will be better, and it'll just keep getting better as time goes on.
25 times. It'll take you 25 times. And yeah. If I was in your shoes, I thought I had a PowerPoint presentation, but the one that I have is from several companies ago, and it's a much different presentation that was really crafted when I presented it to my LOs when I owned my own company. I would ask you that if you really wanted to make it impactful, I would come up with a PowerPoint presentation and put it in front of your clients. Grab your laptop or grab your iPad and just show it to them and make it not so much so that they see the visual, but so you get to recognize that this is the habit that you have to get into.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because a lot of
So the
what I'm
pro,
going to be doing is over the phone. I mean,
okay,
that's
perfect.
just the things have gone. I mean, I always offer, to meet with them, but it's usually not until the time we come to sign the papers and they're already
That and that's
working
fine.
with me.
I think you can be effective over the phone, but you have to begin to realize that the moment that you go on the telephone, you're not going to have nearly the amount of success
Right.
of them not shopping you, because face-to-face communication is the strongest. And so I always likened it to, I understand that you're an extremely busy person, Mr. Realtor, but here's the reality, or Mr. Client, here's the reality. This business is extremely complicated. And as much as I would love to get all the information over the phone from you and make your life easy, you're about to buy a house, which is one of the largest investments of your life. And from where I stand, there's about 100 things that could go wrong, and I would not be doing the job that you're asking me to do for you if I didn't have a chance to sit down and meet with you face to face. You can send in all of your documents to me, and I might be able to issue a pre-approval, but it's not common practice for me to do that because I feel like I'm not providing you with the level of service that you need. It's kind of like when you call a doctor and say, I'm really busy, Mr. Physician, but I can't come in and see you, but here's the pain I'm having in my side. What should I do?
Right.
The doctors are going to say, as much as you're busy, I would advise that you come in so we can do a full diagnosis. And I would love to help you, but I don't think I'm doing my job for you if you don't meet with me face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And they may go, well, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't. You go, all right, well, then I understand that. That's the best that I can do. Your value is if you give them everything they want over the phone, there's no commitment, there's no engagement, there's no skin on their back, and then they become as anonymous as you are to them, and they can go out there and do whatever they want. And the likelihood of them comparing you to everybody else is going to be extremely high.
Right.
They're not going to be comparing everybody else to you. They're going to be comparing you to everybody else.
Right. Plus, I guess being over the phone, you're talking to one of the two.
Right, and that's the whole hard, and that's the hard part of it. You've
Right.
got to make it to where you run a. I don't know any other professional that makes the money that we make who doesn't demand that they come in and meet with you. I don't care if you're an attorney. They're not going to do your counseling over the phone unless you've met with them face to face.
Right.
A doctor sure the hell isn't going to do it. I
Right.
mean,
Doug, I'm at the point right now where, my office is in Grand Rapids. I'm in Chicago, so I don't have an office. So for us to meet, it's either Starbucks or their house, which is
I love the idea of meeting my client. In the beginning, I met with all my clients at their homes. I
right.
loved it. I loved it. I got a chance to really meet with them. It helped differentiate myself, and it made me very, very committed to, becoming value added. Because I
Right.
didn't just drive to their house. I mean, if I'm going to drive to your house, I'm laying it on thick. I'm telling them, man, you know what? Tonight I could have done this or I had this plan, but your business to me is important. So I made the commitment to come out and see you at your home. I made my clients very aware that it takes a lot for me to commit to driving to their house. And I leveraged the relationship accordingly.
Right.
I'm making it convenient for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't get the value in me coming to their house, then my ears went up and I said, you know what? Maybe this isn't a good fit. I had clients that I went to their house. I was just thinking about this the other day. I drove to a client's house 3 times, and eventually they used a credit union. That never happened twice, I promise you.
Yeah.
And that was because I was trying to figure out my value. I simply talked to them about rates in good faith and went over it and over it. I mean, it was insanity. It was like I was chasing my own tail.
Right.
I don't have a problem meeting with clients at their home. It's
No,
not
I
always
mean,
convenient, but if I
yeah.
meet with them, then, it's just all about the success rate of getting them to understand your value compared to them shopping you. If you don't mind it, I'm not saying you can't do everything over the phone. I'm just saying my success rate was much greater face-to-face than it was over the telephone.
Right. Okay.
Was this helpful?
Very helpful. Yes. So now, as far as anything in writing, what do you have that can go along with what you? I mean, I know we have this recorded, so that's
Yep.
good. I can
Yep.
listen back to it.
I'm gonna email you the turbulence, the letter, because I actually mail it out to my clients as well. but I'll send you a copy of the turbulence letter. You can adjust it, modify it. This one, I stopped using it in 2013, so I'm sure a lot's been changed or can be added or deleted. So make it your own. There's
Okay.
the cover letter that goes with it, and then there's the script that I use with it.
Okay.
Outside of that, I would simply go back and listen to the phone call and take the notes that fit for you and craft your message. Craft a 15-minute presentation that works around these bullet points and start implementing it. It's not going to hurt your business. I promise you.
Right. I agree.
All right, buddy.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hey, can you do me a huge favor?
Yes, sir.
When you talk to Scott this afternoon,
Okay.
can you tell him? Can you give him your honest feedback about our conversations?
Oh yeah, I will. And you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it means the world to me because he puts a lot of confidence in me and my abilities, and I do truly take. I meant what I said. I look up to him, and his endorsement of me means the world to me. And the more that he knows that I'm taking care of the people that he refers me to, the better off we all are. I create a better relationship with him because of it. You create a better relationship with him because of it, and you and I develop a significantly great relationship because of it. So you telling him anything that comes to mind, any feedback that you can give him, it honestly means the world to me.
Okay.
You can make that commitment?
I will do that. You just used what I'm supposed to use on my clients, didn't you?
See how easy it is?
Yes.
See when you provide value, how willing people are to help you because they feel indebted and want to repay you?
Yep. Yep, this is good. I appreciate it.
This is it. That's all it is. All right, brother. Make it a great day. I'll send you the replay and the letters as soon as I'm done converting the recording.